My name is Julie Emerson, and I was told, on the day of my sister's wedding, no less, that I didn't deserve more than $500 while Amanda basked in a $250,000 celebration funded by our parents. But 3 years later, at a Los Angeles Tech Summit, I handed that same sister and mother a cease and desist letter in front of cameras, while smiling for the keynote spotlight. Funny how success tastes sweeter when served with receipts. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, and if you've ever been made to feel small by your own family, you're not alone. This is how I found my power. It was supposed to be a celebration. A joyful night in San Diego's Fairmont Grand Ballroom, crystal chandeliers glowing like a dream, champagne towers glittering in gold. But for me, it felt like a funeral. Not for Amanda's wedding. Oh no, the golden girl had everything she ever wanted. It was a funeral for my last shred of hope that I'd ever matter to this family. I was seated alone, tucked near the ice sculpture of a swan that was melting slowly, almost theatrically. Everyone else was up front, Amanda in her custom Vera Wang gown, holding court beneath a floral arch that probably cost more than my last 2 years of rent. The room was a maze of blush satin, giggles, and catered perfection, and I was the afterthought wilting by the carving station. A voice slid behind me, so cold it made my skin prickle. I turned, and there she was. My mother, Evelyn, perfectly composed in her silver dress. She didn't sit, just placed a white envelope on the table. "For helping with Amanda's shower and dress fittings," she said, her voice crisp. "This is all you deserve." Before I could speak, she was already halfway back to her table, the train of her gown brushing the marble floor like I'd just imagined the whole thing. I opened the envelope. A check. $500. Signed and sealed like a business transaction. A burst of laughter erupted near the head table. Amanda had just raised her glass to toast my parents' unbelievable generosity and joked about her $250,000 dream wedding fund. People clapped. Someone shouted, "She's worth every penny." Noah, my partner, had been trying to find me for nearly an hour. When he did, he crouched by my chair and handed me a flute of champagne. "Why are you way back here?" he asked gently, eyes scanning the distance between me and the party. "I guess I'm just easier to ignore from here," I said, my throat tight. He reached for my hand. "I hate that look on your face, Jules. Say the word and we're gone." I looked down at the envelope again. Something cracked inside me, silent, clean, final. "We're leaving," I said, my voice shaking only slightly. "Tonight." As I stood, I caught Amanda's eye from across the room. She tilted her head, confused for a second, then smirked when she saw me clutching the envelope. I walked past the dessert table, past cousins who didn't wave, past my aunt who gave me a pitying smile but said nothing. No one stopped me, except for one of Amanda's bridesmaids, Lily, who whispered, "Wait, are you okay? Where are you going?" "Home," I said, "just not the one I came from." Outside, the sea breeze hit my face like a benediction. Noah was already pulling the car around. "I packed a bag just in case," he said. "You always say I overprepare." For the first time all night, I laughed. Not a happy laugh, but the kind that said, "You thought I'd keep taking this, you were wrong." As we drove off, the glow of the ballroom faded behind us. My phone buzzed, text from my mother unread. Amanda had posted a selfie mid-toast, blessed beyond measure. I stared out the window and said nothing for a while. Then quietly I turned to Noah. "I'm going to build something. Something of our own. From scratch." He reached across the console, took my hand. "And it'll be worth more than every penny they threw at that wedding." I nodded, not in spite, in clarity, because sometimes the only way to belong is to walk away first. 3 days later, we were sitting on the floor of a tiny one-bedroom apartment in East Austin, our backs against a pile of unopened boxes, eating cold takeout straight from the containers. The place smelled like paint and cardboard. Nothing was where it should be, and yet I could finally breathe. I'd found the listing online 2 days after the wedding, still shaking from everything. It was the kind of place you take when you don't have time to think, just act. The carpet was frayed near the door, the AC groaned like it needed therapy, and the kitchen was barely big enough for 2 people to stand in. But it was ours. Not handed to me with conditions. Not thrown at me like a bone to keep me quiet. Ours. Noah handed me a chipped mug. "Green tea, just how I liked it." "It's just us now," he said gently, kneeling beside me. I looked at him, still in the same hoodie he wore the night we left the Fairmont. His eyes calm, steady, safe. He wasn't just my partner. He was the only person who didn't look at me like I was dramatic for walking away. I took a sip and leaned back against the wall. We'll build from scratch, I whispered. But we'll build it together. There was a silence then, not awkward, sacred. From somewhere above us, a neighbor's dog barked twice, followed by the thump of footsteps. Across the street, a food truck fired up its grill. Life was happening. Messy, noisy, beautiful life. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting to be included, I was starting my own. Do you think we're crazy? I asked, half smiling, as I kicked at an unopened box labeled kitchen sort later. Oh, absolutely, Noah said with a laugh. But like the good kind of crazy. The kind that gets stuff done. I smiled. We don't even have a couch yet. We have floor, he said proudly, patting the beige carpet. Some cultures prefer it. You're hilarious. You're beautiful, I blinked. That caught me off guard. I'm a mess. You're a beautiful mess and you're finally free. I wanted to believe that, but I still felt the sting from my mother's words. That's all you deserve. How do you scrub something like that from your bones? I glanced around the room. Our belongings, just a few essentials and a lot of in-betweens, sat in a scattered pile of hopes. No heirlooms, no framed family photos, no guilt-covered reminders of where I came from, just a thrifted lamp, some second-hand books, a half-assembled IKEA table, and Noah. I keep hearing her voice, I admitted. At night, like it's stuck in my chest. Noah didn't try to fix it. He just moved closer, pulling me into his side. She doesn't get to define you, he said quietly. You're going to write your own definition, piece by piece. I nodded into his shoulder, my tears quiet but certain. Later that night, we made a bed out of folded blankets and the one comforter we remembered to pack. It wasn't plush. It wasn't warm enough. But somehow it held us like a promise. Before falling asleep, I whispered into the dark, I'm scared. Noah didn't hesitate. Me too. A pause. But I'd rather be scared with you in a crappy apartment than safe in a life that's not mine. I exhaled a shaky breath. We're really doing this. He took my hand beneath the covers. Julie Emerson, you are doing this. 3 months after moving in, I had memorized the sound of our neighbor's alarm clock. It went off at 4:45 every morning. Thin walls made sure we shared his entire morning routine, microwave beeps, the clatter of mismatched shoes, a muffled phone call in Spanish. Then silence. That was my cue to start my own day. I'd gotten a job at a mid-tier tech firm in downtown Austin. Junior Marketing Associate. The kind of title that means nothing until it suddenly means everything. Noah's schedule was less consistent. He'd pieced together enough freelance gigs to keep us going. Websites for local musicians, a booking system for a tiny yoga studio, a few hours each week troubleshooting code for a startup no one had heard of. He took what he could. We both did. Most nights, one of us was working while the other slept. Our apartment was so small we had to invent rules. If someone's sleeping, Noah said once, holding up a spoon like a gavel, no crunchy snacks may be consumed within 10 feet of the bed/desk/table. Agreed, I grinned. Also, no conference calls before coffee. It was exhausting. It was unglamorous, but it was ours. Ramen dinners became our tradition, not because we loved them, but because they were 99 cents and didn't require a real stove. Someday we'll look back and laugh at these, I said one night, poking at a styrofoam bowl while balancing my laptop on one knee. Right, Noah looked up from his own screen, eyes tired but steady. Someday we'll own the building, and we'll charge ourselves 0 rent. I chuckled, letting his confidence carry me a little further. Ambitious. He winked. Strategic. Every evening, I poured everything I had into work. I volunteered for the thankless projects, wrote copy that no one read, pitched campaigns that got trimmed down until they looked like everything else. But I kept going. Not because I was eager to impress, but because I needed to prove to myself, more than anyone, that I wasn't the charity case Evelyn made me feel like. I started keeping a journal again. Not the kind with pretty quotes and stickers. The real kind. Pages filled with thoughts I couldn't say aloud. Today my manager called me tenacious. Not sure if it's a compliment or a warning. Amanda posted another photo. Beachfront villa. Caption, soft life only. No mention of the startup she consults for. Funny how soft things crumble fastest. I was still angry, but I wasn't paralyzed by it anymore. The apartment grew with us in strange little ways. We found an old bookshelf at a yard sale and turned it into a pantry. I stuck post-it notes around my desk. Pitch with purpose. Build with grit. Make it matter. Noah mounted our lone piece of art, a black and white photo of a Texas highway, and declared it the vision wall. "We need something to stare at when the ramen gets too real," he said. On weekends, we'd walk through downtown, not because we had money to spend, but to remind ourselves what ambition looked like when it grew up. Sleek cafes. Co-working spaces filled with glossy-haired entrepreneurs sipping $6 lattes. Someday, I told myself. But for now, walk, dream, repeat. One Saturday afternoon, we found ourselves outside an office building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a big brass plaque that read, Lyra Innovations. I recognized the name. It was one of the companies our firm pitched to last year. I stared up at the building a long time. Noah nudged me. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "I want a seat at that table. Maybe not tomorrow, but eventually." He didn't laugh, didn't say it was unrealistic. Instead, he pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the building, and said, "Good, now we have a before picture." That night, back in our shoebox of a home, I taped the printed photo to the wall beside our mattress. "I'm going to build something real," I whispered. Noah kissed my shoulder. "You already are." It started with a typo. Not mine, thank God, but the client's. A young founder at a fledgling health tech startup had emailed our team looking for a disruptive and emotionally relevant campaign. He meant relevant, of course, but something about that mistake stuck with me. Emotionally relevant. Raw, unpolished, personal. Exactly what most tech marketing lacked. Our creative director, Brett, tossed the project on my desk like it was a frisbee no one wanted to catch. "Julie, give it a shot if you want. Low budget, big ego, probably won't go anywhere." He walked away, already writing it off. But I didn't. For 3 nights straight, I worked on that pitch like it held the keys to something bigger, because it did. I felt it. I wasn't going to just pitch their product, I was going to pitch their purpose. The campaign's slogan I came up with, Health that hears you. It focused on their AI-powered medical support tool, but the heart of it was human. Every touchpoint leaned into empathy, diversity, accessibility. I wrote copy that made tech feel like a warm hand on your back. I mocked up visuals using stock photos I edited myself, layering soft tones and sharp messaging. And when I presented it to Brett, he blinked, leaned back in his chair and said, "Wait, you did this." "All of it," I said, bracing for indifference. But instead, he grinned. "You've got guts, Emerson." 2 weeks later, the startup signed a $600K retainer package with our agency. It was the biggest account we'd landed in over a year. And suddenly, I wasn't just Julie from marketing. I was lead strategist on the account. I got a title bump, a desk near the window, and invitations to meetings where people actually took notes when I spoke. At the team announcement, Brett raised a glass and said, "Sometimes talent hides in plain sight. Julie, you ever think about running your own agency someday?" Everyone laughed, but he wasn't joking. And I didn't laugh either. Because now, I was thinking about it. That night, Noah and I went to a rooftop bar downtown, the kind we used to walk by pretending we had plans there. We didn't even order food, just 2 drinks and a shared fries basket, but we looked out over the city like it belonged to us. "Tell me everything," Noah said, eyes glowing. "They called the campaign visionary." I laughed, half disbelieving. "I pitched it on a hunch, and now they want me leading the whole account." He reached across the table and took my hand. "This is the beginning." I squeezed his fingers. "No, this changes everything." For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was scrambling to catch up. I wasn't proving my worth to someone who saw me as expendable. I was leading. I was building. And I started thinking bigger. Late that week, after I'd finished a presentation and walked out to a hallway of congratulatory nods, Brett pulled me aside. "Keep going," he said quietly. "Don't wait for someone to give you permission to level up." I nodded, already thinking about the business name Noah and I had joked about months ago, half dreaming on the couch, silver thread. He'd said it sounded like something quietly strong, something that pulled everything together. I didn't tell Brett yet, but the seed had been planted. Later that night, Noah and I lay in bed, both of us staring up at the ceiling, which was currently adorned with glow-in-the-dark stars from the apartment's previous tenant. "What if," I whispered, "we didn't wait?" Noah turned to me. "Didn't wait for what?" "For someone else to hand us the next step. What if we built it ourselves?" He was quiet for a moment, then, "We'd need a name." "I already have one." I rolled over, kissed his shoulder, and whispered, "Silver Thread." He smiled. "Then let's weave something unforgettable." The day we made it official, the paperwork for Silver Thread still smelled like printer ink and possibility. We registered the LLC from a rickety folding table at a shared workspace, me typing in the business address, our garage, and Noah triple-checking the EIN form like we were applying for citizenship on another planet. Maybe we were, in a way. A new world. One where we made the rules. By the following week, our garage, once filled with mismatched boxes and two old bikes, had transformed into the beating heart of our new venture. Kind of. We cleared out just enough space for a second-hand desk Noah found on Facebook Marketplace. $45 and a dent in one corner. I stuck a candle on it and called it ambience. It's not much, Noah said, plugging in the router we'd borrowed from our living room, but it's ours. I looked around at the half-painted walls, the buzzing fluorescent light, and the whiteboard we'd bolted to the back of the garage door. Every empire starts in a garage, right? He grinned. Just ask Jobs and Bezos. Okay, maybe not Bezos, I said. Let's aim for benevolent Empress vibes. We laughed, but underneath the humor was something solid, something real. We were finally doing it. That first month was a blur of long nights, lukewarm coffee, and client pitches that felt like blind dates, some promising, others just plain awkward. Our first client came from Noah's cousin, a family-run landscaping company that needed a rebrand. We'll pay in cash and pizza, his cousin texted. We accept both, I replied. I designed a new logo, wrote their tagline, and built their first web page while sitting cross-legged on the garage floor. When they handed us an envelope with $200 and a stack of handwritten thank you notes, I cried. Not because of the money, because someone believed in us enough to write our names down. After that came a local pet grooming business, then a food truck startup. Small gigs, but steady. Each one proof that we weren't just dreaming, we were working. I remember the night we hit our first real milestone, 5 clients in 1 month. Noah came into the garage carrying 2 cheap champagne flutes and a half-chilled bottle of Prosecco. He'd written Silver Thread Client 5 in Sharpie on a napkin and taped it to the mini fridge we used as a side table. To progress, he toasted. To momentum, I answered. To pizza that's not from coupons someday. We clinked glasses and laughed so hard I nearly spilled mine on my laptop, but under the laughter I felt something shift. Hope, not the fragile kind. The earned kind. The garage became a world of its own. We layered in warmth wherever we could, a rug from Goodwill, a fan Noah rewired, a Spotify playlist that always started with Leon Bridges. In a corner I hung a photo of that rooftop bar from the night of my promotion, right above a scribbled quote Noah had printed. They didn't give it to her, so she built it herself. Clients started coming back. Word was spreading. People liked our style, direct, heart-forward, strategy-backed. One woman, a first-time founder in her 40s, told me, "You speak like a real person, I trust you." And maybe that's what we were really selling, trust. The same thing I'd been begging my family for my entire life. Only now I was earning it from strangers. Noah worked on the back end, optimizing sites, tracking analytics, and occasionally yelling, "Why is this font haunted?" from across the garage. We shared ideas over cereal bowls, tested taglines on each other mid-toothbrush, and celebrated every wireframe like it was an Oscar win. Our official team motto, done is better than perfect. By the 3rd month, we broke even. By the 4th, we had a wait list. I think we need help, I told Noah one morning, staring at our shared calendar. Like actual help, a human who isn't you or me. He raised an eyebrow. An intern, a real hire, part-time. Someone who won't crash if they work more than 20 hours. He leaned back, arms behind his head, smile wide. You know what that means, right? That we're real, I whispered. We were still in a garage, still eating ramen once a week, still calculating every purchase. But now we had a name, a client roster, a process, and a plan. 1 year and 2 weeks after launching Silver Thread, I stood in the center of a sunlit office with floor-to-ceiling glass walls and couldn't stop smiling. The new space smelled like paint and ambition. The floors were pale wood, the furniture modern and minimal. There was even a tiny espresso machine in the break nook, our first official splurge purchase, and a far cry from the garage coffee maker that had groaned its way through every 5 a.m. brainstorm. We had a real office, a receptionist, a staff of 8, and we didn't owe a single bit of it to anyone named Emerson. I walked slowly across the room, fingers trailing along the edge of the sleek black conference table we'd scored at auction. The city buzzed outside our 10th floor windows, but inside it was quiet for now. calm, like the breath right before something incredible begins. Noah stepped beside me, wearing the navy blazer he only dusted off for rare, serious moments. "You're doing the thing again," he said softly. "What thing?" "The slow walk. The reflective gaze. You're narrating in your head, aren't you?" I turned to him, grinning. "How did you know?" "Because you only do it when something really matters." I nodded, glancing around the room. "This matters." We were hosting our first full team meeting in the new space. Everyone was arriving shortly: designers, copywriters, client leads, a project manager we'd been lucky to steal from a much larger firm. All of them were talented. All of them had taken a chance on us. And somehow it worked. A few weeks before, a mid-sized tech company had gone viral with one of our campaigns, Data with Dignity, a minimalist but emotionally resonant ad series that had hit a nerve online. The exposure catapulted us into a new league. Angel investors started reaching out. Not us chasing, them calling. We said no to most. But one, a retired Latina executive named Carla Reyes, offered not just capital but wisdom. "You're not like the other firms," she told me during our first call. "You lead with heart, protect that." With her investment, we scaled without selling our soul. Now here we were downtown Austin, light spilling through windows we didn't have to clean ourselves. The team started to arrive one by one. Laughter echoed as they explored the space. Someone played music low through a Bluetooth speaker. Our copywriter, Mia, immediately claimed a beanbag in the corner as her thinking spot. We ordered tacos and sparkling water and gathered in a circle. Noah tapped his glass gently with a spoon. "Julie has something to say." I froze for a second, overwhelmed, then I stood up, heart steady. "I just want to thank all of you," I began. "When we started this company, it was literally a folding table and a garage fan. There was no safety net, no old money, no boardroom parents making introductions." People laughed, some nodded, they knew. "We built this on love, on grit, and on a total lack of handouts." A few soft whoops. Smiles. I lifted my glass. "To Silver Thread. May we never forget where we came from and never limit where we can go." Glasses clinked. Someone shouted to Ramen Days, and Noah added to Haunted Fonts and Miracle Deadlines. And in that moment, something in me settled. I thought of that wedding ballroom, the round tables covered in orchids, the cold envelope, the way I'd sat alone while Amanda toasted herself. How small I felt that night. How invisible. Now I stood at the head of something real. Something earned. Later, when the team dispersed to explore their new desks and Wi-Fi passwords, I wandered into my private office. Just a corner room with a view of the skyline. But it had a door, a window, a place where I could think. Pinned to my corkboard was a single photo from our garage days, Noah and I holding mugs of instant coffee, surrounded by extension cords and dreams. I stared at it for a long time, not in nostalgia, in awe, because this wasn't luck. This wasn't charity. This was what happens when someone finally believes she's worth more than scraps, and builds something beautiful anyway. It was during an end-of-quarter wrap-up brunch, mimosas, too many sticky notes, and a playlist I definitely over-curated, when someone from my old world slipped through the glass doors of the new one. Her name was Zoe Mitchell. She used to intern at my first job back when I was still just Julie from marketing. We hadn't spoken in years, but she'd recently joined a client's in-house team and dropped by for a strategy session. When the meeting ended and most of the staff filtered out to enjoy their Friday afternoon, Zoe lingered behind, sipping the last of her orange juice. "Hey," she said, tilting her head a little, "is Amanda Emerson your sister?" I hadn't heard that full name said out loud in over a year. My spine straightened automatically. "I suppose she still is," I said carefully. "Why?" Zoe grimaced a little, the way people do when they've realized they've just stepped into something complicated. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." I was at a dinner last weekend and someone mentioned she's going through it. Divorce, bankruptcy, all of it. They said your parents are trying to help but it's messy." I blinked, slowly. "She and her husband split," I said, quieter than I intended. "Yeah, he left a few months ago, I guess. Took a job out of state. She used up most of the wedding fund, house, fancy honeymoon, maybe a business attempt. No one's sure. Someone said her place is in foreclosure." I stood there, mug cooling in my hand. My mind flashed back to that ballroom, to Amanda laughing under a halo of orchids, talking about her forever like it was already diamond engraved. Now she was being whispered about over shrimp cocktails. I tried to feel something clean about it, some crisp sense of justice. But instead, I felt tangled. When Zoe left, I stayed in my office a while, door closed, eyes blurry. Not crying, just sifting. That night I told Noah. We were curled up in our living room, our new one with built-in bookshelves and a hand-me-down leather couch we'd promised to reupholster but never would. The walls were white, spare, peaceful. He passed me a bowl of salted popcorn and raised an eyebrow as I recounted what Zoe had said. When I finished, he didn't speak right away. Then, gently, "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I think so, it's just strange. She got everything she asked for and still. It wasn't enough," Noah finished. Or maybe it was just never real. We sat in silence for a while, the sound of our upstairs neighbor's dog thumping across hardwood like a tiny drumline. Finally he said, "Just be careful." I glanced at him. "Of what?" "Nostalgia," he replied. "It makes betrayal feel forgivable, even when it shouldn't be." I leaned back, pressing the bowl to my stomach. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted. "Pity, maybe, but also," I paused. "There's a part of me that wants her to reach out, just so I can finally ask why." Noah gave a half-smile. "And if she does, what will you say?" "I don't know yet," I hesitated. "But I want to say it as someone who doesn't owe her anything anymore." He nodded slowly. "Then say it as the woman who built a company from the garage up without a dime of help." I exhaled, a soft breath caught between tension and freedom. He pulled me closer. "I'll support whatever you choose," he said quietly. "But I won't let them drag you back to a place you already escaped from." I didn't respond, just rested my head on his chest, letting his heartbeat lull me into the comfort of the present. Amanda's world had collapsed, but mine had roots now, and I wasn't going to let her pull them up by accident. It was a bright Saturday morning when they showed up. No call, no warning. Just a doorbell and the familiar, echoing discomfort of my past standing neatly on my front porch. Amanda wore oversized sunglasses, but I knew that tilt of her chin. And my mother, Evelyn, had her usual crisp posture, clutching a tote bag like it held the weight of diplomacy, or expectations. I hesitated. Noah wasn't home, he'd gone out for groceries and a quick coffee run. For a moment, I considered not answering. But then I thought, no, let them see it. Let them walk through the doors of the life they said I didn't deserve. I opened the door. Amanda pulled off her sunglasses with the kind of dramatic flourish I'd seen 100 times growing up. "Julie," she breathed, smiling like this was the pilot episode of a family reunion series. "Hi," I said flatly. Evelyn stepped forward, already surveying the entryway. "We were just in the neighborhood," she said. "Thought we'd stop by, say hello." I didn't move. "How did you get my address?" My mother waved the question away. "Don't be silly, it's not like you're in hiding." I was in a way, but I stepped back, letting the door swing open. "Sure," I said, "come in." The moment they crossed the threshold, I watched it happen, the way their eyes flicked over the walnut flooring, the curated art pieces, the subtle glow of track lighting. The place was warm but minimal, with tall plants and high ceilings that made everything feel airy and earned. Amanda let out a low whistle. "This is nice." "Thank you," I said, already bracing for whatever this really was. She walked slowly through the living room, brushing her hand across the back of the velvet couch. "Is that a West Elm piece?" she asked. "Nope, local maker." Evelyn trailed behind her, lips pressed tight, scanning everything like it was a home staging and she was the inspector. I watched them pretend to admire, pretend to reconnect, pretend, period. Amanda turned back to me, her voice light. "You must be doing really well." "I am." She blinked. I didn't fill the silence. My mother stepped in. "Your father and I were just saying how proud we are that you've come so far." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you," I said again, still not offering them a seat. "It's been a lot of work." Amanda laughed, not unkindly but brittle around the edges. "I mean, I remember when you were still stuck doing those boring ad campaigns, trying to get Brett to notice you." I nodded. "Now I run my own firm. We're hiring again next quarter." She paused. I could see the calculations behind her eyes. "I've been thinking about getting back into the workforce," she said slowly. "It's been a hard year." There it was, the reveal. Evelyn chimed in, voice suddenly tender. "Amanda's been through a lot, Julie. Her marriage," she trailed off with a sigh, as if waiting for me to rush in with comfort or more likely a checkbook. I offered neither. Amanda looked at me, eyes shimmering now. "I know we weren't close for a while, but maybe we could start over." It was rehearsed, the performance of regret, the curated vulnerability of someone who wanted access more than forgiveness. Still, I took a breath. "You want a tour?" I asked. They both nodded, smiling, relief flashing across their faces like they'd passed some unspoken test. I showed them the office, walls lined with framed client success stories and photos from our garage days. Amanda stared longest at the picture of me and Noah sitting on the floor, holding up our first invoice. Then the kitchen, sleek and sunlit, the guest room quiet and sparse. When we circled back to the living room, Amanda stood awkwardly near the fireplace. My mother cleared her throat. "Your father and I have been doing what we can, of course," she began. "But it's hard when someone suddenly finds herself alone, with no stability." Amanda looked down, voice shaking. "I just keep thinking, how did you get all of this? How do you have a business and this house and—" She trailed off as if it pained her to even say the rest. "Because I left," I said softly. "And I never looked back." My mother's eyes narrowed. "You make it sound so easy, like we didn't do anything for you." "You gave Amanda a $250,000 wedding," I said, "and handed me a check for $500 the same night. Don't rewrite history now that it's inconvenient." Amanda flinched. Evelyn straightened, her tone sharpening. "This is what happens when you're selfish." I raised an eyebrow. "Selfish?" "Yes," she snapped. "You cut your family off. You ran off and made your little company while we—" "No," I interrupted. "I built something after you told me I didn't deserve anything. I didn't cut anyone off. You made it clear who mattered." Amanda's face crumpled. "Why don't I have this?" she said, gesturing at the room. "I did everything right. I followed the plan." "And when it failed," I replied gently, "you thought I'd still be the safety net." She looked like she might cry again. But this time I didn't step forward. My mother grabbed her purse. "Come on, Amanda, let's go." I opened the door. Neither said goodbye. When it clicked shut behind them, I stood there for a while, hand still on the doorknob. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the counter. They hadn't come for reconciliation. They'd come for rescue. But I'd stopped offering that long ago. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of regret, there wasn't any, but because of the weight of clarity. The kind that arrives like a tide, slow, steady, undeniable. Amanda's words kept circling in my head. "Why don't I have this?" And my mother's, "This is what happens when you're selfish." But they weren't questions. They were accusations wrapped in pity. They wanted access, not amends. The next morning, I emailed our family attorney, a woman named Elise I'd hired a year ago after Silver Thread's first funding round. I told her I had an unusual request. We met in a quiet, sun-drenched corner of a cafe downtown. I slid into the booth with a coffee and a manila folder. Elise, with her sharp eyes and no-nonsense blazer, nodded politely. "I want to set up a fund," I said. "Education only, my niece." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Amanda's daughter," I nodded. "She's 6, bright, funny, no part in any of this mess. She deserves a shot." Elise pulled out her tablet. "Do you want it to be managed privately or through a 529 savings plan?" "Privately," I said. "And anonymous, if possible. I don't want Amanda thinking this is her second chance." Elise tilted her head. "Do you want them to know you set it up?" I hesitated. "Then. Eventually. But not now. Not until she's old enough to understand it came with no strings attached." Elise smiled faintly, the kind of smile professionals allow when they approve of something but keep it quiet. "Any message you want to attach to the fund?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Just a note. For the future she deserves, built on love, not guilt." After Elise left with the paperwork, I stayed behind to finish my coffee. My hands were still slightly trembling, not from fear, from release. Later that evening, Noah and I sat on the back patio, bundled under a throw blanket, watching the sun drop behind the trees. He handed me a mug of herbal tea, his brow creased with quiet concern. "Rough day, important day," I said, blowing on the steam. I told him about the fund. He listened without interrupting, just like he always did when something really mattered. When I finished, he placed his mug down and looked at me. "You're incredible, you know that?" I laughed softly. "I don't feel incredible, I feel tired." "You didn't owe them anything, Jules, but you still gave something. And you gave it to the right person." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "They'll never know what they lost," I murmured. Noah's hand found mine. "No," he said, "but our daughter will never have to guess what she's worth." That was the promise. Quiet, unshakable. No child of mine would ever sit alone at the edge of the room wondering if they were enough. The legacy Amanda tried to cling to, the status, the show, the illusion, it collapsed because it was built on sand. But this new legacy, it was being built brick by brick. Boundaried, fierce, soft in the right places. And it would hold. It started small. A vague post on Amanda's Facebook page. Some people build empires on the backs of family pain, but karma doesn't miss. I almost didn't see it until a former high school friend tagged me in the comments asking, "Is this about you?" Then came the story reposts. Screenshots from our childhood, photos she dug up of birthday parties I had planned, vacations I had paid for, all captioned with some version of, "Funny how people forget who helped them get here." The guilt wasn't subtle, it was curated. At first I tried to ignore it. Block, mute, move on, but Amanda had always known how to perform pain in a way that made her look like the martyr. And it didn't take long before mutual acquaintances started messaging me. "Hey, are you and Amanda okay? She's really been struggling, maybe you two could talk. I know you've been successful lately, but don't forget where you came from." That one nearly made me throw my phone. Then came the texts. Direct. Cutting, "Amanda, you've made your point. Congratulations on your perfect life. Amanda, I hope you're proud. Mom can barely sleep knowing what you've done to this family. Amanda, you owe us, Julie. We're blood." The last one stayed pinned at the top of my screen like it had weight. "We're blood." Funny how that's the phrase people use when they have nothing else to stand on. That same week, Silver Thread finalized a major acquisition, our biggest yet. We'd merged with a small but sharp analytics firm that brought technical muscle to our heart-forward campaigns. It was a win that would have changed everything for past Julie. Now, it simply confirmed that I wasn't going back. At the press event, I stood on a small stage in front of a downtown crowd of investors, clients, and media. Noah sat in the front row, beside our newest team members, his expression proud but steady, like a lighthouse cutting through fog. I wore a structured navy blazer. Clean lines, no frills. The moderator asked about our growth, our culture, our vision. I answered everything with practiced ease, but beneath the surface I boiled. Amanda's voice rang in my head with every question. "You owe us. We're blood." I smiled for the cameras. I posed for group shots. I signed a few press packets with a Sharpie someone handed me, but inside I was writing something else. That night, Noah and I sat on our living room floor, laptops open, a quiet fury between us. "I'm done," I said finally, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Good," he said. "Say it clearly, say it once." So I did. I wrote one final letter, not cruel but unflinching. "Amanda, you've made it clear that your interest in reconnecting was never about healing. It was about control, about money, about rewriting history in a way that lets you avoid accountability. I won't participate in your performance anymore. I have no obligation to allow your version of family into my life. Blood isn't a bond, it's behavior. And your behavior has made your position in my life very clear. Do not contact me again." Noah added his signature beneath mine. We sent it. And then I blocked every number, every email, every lingering thread. I expected to feel sad. Instead, I felt still. Not triumphant. Not angry, just still. Amanda had poured poison in the well one too many times. And I finally had the courage to stop drinking. There's something sobering about seeing your name dragged through captions and DMs by people who once called you family. But there's something far more powerful in reclaiming your voice. After I sent the final letter to Amanda, I knew it wouldn't be the end. I'd spent too long in her orbit not to understand the rhythm of her drama. Escalate, perform, pivot to victim. Then loop again. And sure enough, 2 days later, an anonymous Instagram account appeared, vague posting about a sibling who abandoned her family for fame and how real loyalty isn't built in boardrooms. Subtle? Hardly. Targeted? Absolutely. I met with our corporate attorney, who helped me draft a formal cease and desist. The letter was simple, direct. Attached were screenshots of Amanda's texts, captions, and posts, including comments she'd left on mutual friends' pages, clearly intending to stir speculation. I didn't want revenge. I wanted quiet. But more than that, I wanted the truth documented. The next step was private and a little painful. I reached out to the mutual acquaintances Amanda had manipulated, friends from college, old coworkers, distant cousins. I sent a single message, customized but consistent. "There's been a lot of misinformation shared recently. I want to clarify one thing: I was not handed success, I earned it. After years of being dismissed by my own family, I walked away and I've never asked for a thing from them since." Attached are screenshots and messages that show the full picture. You don't have to respond, I just want you to have the truth. I didn't expect many replies, but they came. Some apologetic. Others quietly supportive. A few said, "I always suspected something didn't add up." It wasn't about clearing my name, it was about closing the door without having to barricade it. And then came Los Angels. I'd been invited months earlier to speak at a Women in Tech Summit, a room full of founders, creators, CEOs. When I first accepted, I thought I'd be talking about digital strategy, metrics, branding. But the closer I got to the stage, the more I realized I had something deeper to share. Noah came with me. We stayed in a small, elegant hotel just a few blocks from the conference center. The morning of my keynote, he made me coffee in silence, then simply said, "Tell the truth, the part that matters." The ballroom was massive, rows of chairs filled with ambitious women in heels and hoodies alike. The lights were bright, the microphone warm in my hand, and I began. I wasn't given opportunity, I said into the silence. I built it after being told I didn't deserve one. A pause. In fact, the last thing my mother ever handed me was an envelope. On my sister's wedding day, inside was a $500 check. That was her definition of fair. The crowd was still, eyes locked on mine. I used to think I had to work twice as hard to earn half the love, half the space, half the respect, but I was wrong. I stepped away from the podium, walking slowly across the stage. I didn't need their love to be valuable. I didn't need their permission to begin. I just needed to stop asking for it. Murmurs, then hands, clapping. It started slow, but it grew. A roar of agreement rising from women who had lived versions of that same story. I smiled genuinely, fully for the first time in a long time. I built Silver Thread in a garage with a folding table, a second-hand chair, and a man who believed in me when no one else did. We had no trust fund, no safety net, just grit. And the quiet rage of being underestimated. By the time I stepped off stage, my inbox was flooded. The DMs, the LinkedIn requests. A woman stopped me in the hallway with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "That felt like closure I didn't know I needed." And maybe it was closure for me too, not because Amanda was gone from my life, but because the wound she left no longer bled. That night in our hotel room, Noah held me as we lay in the dark, the faint hum of the freeway just outside. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. I didn't respond, I just exhaled, and felt the quiet, final weight of my past release. The box arrived 2 days after we got home from LA, simple, brown, and marked live plant, handle with care. I carried it to the backyard like it was sacred. Because in a way it was. Inside was a young magnolia sapling, about 2 feet tall, its leaves glossy and stubborn, already reaching upward. We had ordered it weeks ago, back when my belly was still round and the nursery still smelled like fresh paint. Now she was here, our daughter, Avery June Emerson, born 3 weeks early, already strong-willed and always hungry, a tiny miracle with a quiet gaze and a powerful grip. Noah stood beside me, shovel in hand, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He'd barely slept in days, but his eyes never left me or the baby monitor balanced in the window. "I think she'll like this spot," he said, pointing to the corner of the yard that caught the softest sun. I nodded. "She'll grow tall here." We dug the hole together, side by side, knees in the grass. When we lowered the tree into the ground, I felt something shift again inside me, a kind of peace I hadn't known I'd been chasing. When the soil was packed and the roots were covered, we stood in silence. The wind moved through the fence slats gently, like breath. I looked at the sapling, then at Noah. "She'll never have to earn her worth in anyone's eyes." He didn't respond right away. He just stepped closer, kissed my forehead, and rested his hand on my back. "No," he said softly, "because she'll grow up watching what love really looks like." In the weeks that followed, our world slowed down. The conference applause faded. The social media noise disappeared. It was just us and Avery, the scent of baby powder and warm bottles filling the air like background music. At night, I would rock her slowly and hum while Noah typed one-handed at the kitchen table, finishing up a site redesign. We were still building, but the foundation had changed. No more proving, no more pleading, just roots, just love. 5 years passed the way real life always does, not in big cinematic milestones but in slow accumulations. Crayon drawings layered over whiteboards. Laughter echoing down glass hallways. Sticky fingers on my office window, spelling "Hi, Mommy," backward in breath fog. Silver Thread, too, had grown into something I could never have imagined from our garage days. We now had 2 floors in a downtown building, a client list that stretched coast to coast, and a mentorship program I called Second Spark, for women who were told they were too late, too loud, too soft, too different. Avery was 6 now. full of questions and peanut butter and the kind of confidence I once thought was only for other people's daughters. She loved coming to the office, mostly because we kept a snack drawer taller than her, and Mia, our copy chief, had taught her how to edit headlines with purple glitter pens. On a rainy Thursday, a local business journal came to profile the firm. The photographer set up in our main lobby, snapping candid shots of the team. Avery ran through the frame at least twice, shrieking with joy. I didn't stop her. Instead, I held her hand during my interview, letting her rest her cheek on my arm as the reporter leaned in with one final question. What does success mean to you, Julie? I looked out the window, watching raindrops chase each other across the glass. Then I turned back. It means building what they said you didn't deserve, I said quietly, and making sure others know they do. The reporter smiled, but Avery looked up at me, puzzled. Was someone mean to you, Mommy? I brushed her hair back. Yes, baby, a long time ago, but I built something better. She nodded solemnly, then leaned in and whispered, Can I be the boss one day too? I smiled. You already are. Outside, the magnolia tree we planted was blooming, its branches fuller, stronger, unapologetically reaching. And inside, so was I. That was the end of my story. Sometimes I still wonder about Noah. About the night he chose to stand beside me without hesitation, to build something from nothing instead of urging me to go back and keep the peace. Did he do the right thing by encouraging me to walk away and never look back? Or would you have advised something different if you were in his place? Tell me in the comments what you think. And if this journey meant something to you, please like this video and subscribe. I'd love to keep building this space with you.